Hello everybody and welcome back to the PSS Podcast, the first one of 2025. Can't believe it's 2025.
I know, gosh.
Scary. But yes, today we're going to settle back into the year with an interesting subject. We get a lot of questions about our services, so I thought we might spend today just going over some of the most frequently asked questions. Today, as usual, we're joined by, to my left, we've got Gary Flack, the resident optometrist at the Partially Sighted Society. We've got Anita Plant, the CEO of the Partially Sighted Society.
Morning.
Morning. And Nikki Johnson as well, our mental health and wellbeing practitioner.
Morning.
Morning. So, I think the first question is who are we and who do we help? Anyone want to jump in with that one?
Well, Anita for that one.
Yeah.
I don't know who we are.
Okay, so I won't go too involved. So we are the Partially Sighted Society. We've been around for over 50 years, providing help and support to anyone living with sight loss. We help anybody. You don't have to be registered to access my services. We're a national charity. We're based here in Doncaster, but we are a national charity. What do we do? Oh gosh, okay. We provide low vision support, and that's a low vision assessment service. So that involves Gary, who is our low vision optometrist, and we've been working together for a long time, many years.
It feels like longer.
It does. Yeah, so we provide low vision support. So that's a sight test, it's an assessment, it's clinically looking at the remaining vision. And then practically looking at solutions to help you live with that sight loss. Nikki's our mental health and wellbeing practitioner, so she deals with the emotional side of sight loss diagnosis. You, Sean, provide technical support.
I do.
We also have an in-house print service where we print all the bold-lined exercise books for the visually impaired children in schools, diaries, calendars, and that's run by Andre and Marcus. We have an online shop where aids and equipment can be purchased, and also all the school resources can be purchased from there. And on the school books, we've got over 14,000 different permutations of school book that can be customised to that child's visual impairment. So we're quite a unique charity.
So when a school asks, print us a school book, we go, yeah.
Okay.
We need a bit more info than that, don't we?
Yeah, we need the colour cover, the colour lines, the colour line weight, the colour paper.
Because no one visual impairment is ever the same.
Absolutely. So that's where Andre, our print manager, comes in, and you can talk to him and say, this is what I need. And we supply a lot of the schools for that.
So we did mention that you don't have to be registered to come access these services, but do you have to be referred in from somewhere, or can you refer yourself in?
Can refer yourself. It's a self-referral service, specifically for the mental health.
Actually we prefer self-referral because often, once you've taken that first step to kind of pick the phone up or send an email or even just walk in, you've kind of made that choice, you're ready for some support. And that can be a big first step, so we prefer self-referral. It means you're ready for whatever it is we can do to support you.
So, and we're a standalone charity, aren't we? We're not affiliated with the NHS or anything like that?
No, we're a completely independent charity. So although, people do signpost to us from the NHS and from a lot of the ECLO services around the country and from sensory support services, all over really, we are as an independent charity, so we're not part of the statutory service and we're not part of the NHS, although people signpost into us from those services.
So a big follow-up question from that is, a very frequently asked question is, how are we funded?
Okay, so we're primarily funded by our own income generating activities, so donations, legacies. We have a small charity shop, so we get a little bit of income from that. Any sort of fundraising activities we do. Our print room helps to fund us in some ways. We make a very small profit on the print room, which gets funded back into our free services. But we don't get any statutory funding from anywhere. We're completely reliant on our own funding initiatives.
Mm.
people that actually use the service in terms of my part of it, whereas the eye examination, quite often people after it would leave a donation to kind of help out because they've learnt a lot about their eyes which they didn't know about. So we don't get funded by the NHS, so it's not a free eye test. In fact, the optician does get paid for doing that in the high street.
Yeah.
So people do sometimes leave us a donation, which is really, really good.
But the main takeaway is our services are free at the point of service,
Yeah.
but donations appreciated.
Yeah, appreciated, yeah, absolutely.
I forgot to mention the other thing we do is we have a whole host of social and support activities. So we have, don't we? We have. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, we've got things like we've got lots of group stuff that we do. So we've got knit and natter. We've got coffee mornings. We do creative wellbeing group sessions and crafternoons. We do a musical wellbeing, which is quite new and for this year. We're starting a walk, talk and tuck in session, so we're going to be hopefully getting people out and moving and then coming back together to have some food afterwards. So yeah, it's quite a
all of these things are very noisy as well.
Especially
Lots of laughing.
Especially the knit and natter. That's the noisy. We have to. That's the noisy.
If they're making noise, they're having
Then
fun.
They're happy. It's happy noises.
You
Yeah,
never
it's
hear
always
any,
happy noises.
any clinking of knitting needles.
Yeah, no, just lots of chatting.
Lots of nattering.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
strange
it's very regular. We try to at least we try to make sure there's at least something going on each week, or even a couple of things each week for people. So, just that kind of social inclusion, battling loneliness, but also, just like-minded people coming together and sharing a space.
Because
really good.
it's isolating, isn't it?
Absolutely,
a lot of people get that diagnosis and they're sort of think, oh, okay, well, I need to stop using my eyes, and they'll stop reading things that come through. They'll lose confidence, so they stop going out, and then the world shrinks. It becomes smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is kind of go, okay, let's open up the world, and it's Gary and I's service is very much about saying, okay, let's look at the vision that's left, and let's look at finding new ways of doing old things to help you get on with your life and be independent.
That's a big mantra, isn't it?
Yeah, new ways of doing old things.
Yeah.
Very much so.
It's not how you see, it's how you see the world as well, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely,
the
yeah.
bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you're very important in that, because you take people's tech, their phones, and a lot of people don't realise what a fantastic tool they've got in their pocket, do they?
Exactly, yeah. So, we have people coming in with smartphones that use them just to make texts and phone calls, and they do have the capability to access all the wealth of tools that are on there. So it's my job to coax that out of them, and because it's about confidence again. Everything seems to be about confidence and navigating it. So, there's a whole world out there. There's never been a better time to be visually impaired, we say, because the tools available at your fingertips, it's just exponential as well.
And I think AI is sort of, whatever you think about it, I think it's got aspects of being a really good tool for people with sight loss.
As scary as AI is as a term
Yeah.
nowadays, it's exponential in how it can help people.
And actually, just to mention, it's called artificial intelligence. We've even got into that habit for just AI now.
Yeah, it's colloquial now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So AI is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And a lot of the new apps and things on the phones are utilising that, aren't they? So you
exactly.
point the camera to something, it'll tell you what's in the scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. There is so much going out there and so quick that it's changing as well. So
Even since I started working here 3 years ago, and none of that was around.
No.
And that's just 3 years ago. Imagine in the next 3 years what will be. It's, that's what the technology is scary. I agree, but the power it has to help people.
Yeah, I mean, even just using something like an Alexa, isn't it? For a lot of people, they don't realise what great tools they are, and just to have in the home to, just sit in your armchair and ask it to make a phone call for you.
Yeah, so you use your voice, it's basically your hands to navigate a screen. That's basically the functionality of an Alexa.
Yeah.
It's a smart device that you don't have to touch. It can get you to read audiobooks, play music, everything. So it's just about doing things differently, we find, don't we? So,
Yeah. So I think that's what we're really passionate about, isn't it? Is kind of saying, okay, what is it that you want to do, and what can we help you to do, to carry on doing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll go into the services now. So the main cause of sight loss in the UK and is macular degeneration, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah, in the UK it is definitely. AMD is one of the biggest ones. We're able to add the word age-related macular degeneration. We're all living longer, so we are unfortunately, there's a lot more people with AMD. Yeah.
Yeah. So just because most of the questions do come from people with this condition.
Yeah, the classic questions I get, can you go blind from AMD or macular degeneration? And the short answer to that, if it's just macular degeneration, then you will only lose your central vision. The peripheral vision will remain. So from a true point of answering, no, you don't go blind. It will make it harder to do things that are central to what you're looking at. But again, that's where we help out, trying to train you to use the other parts of your vision as well. So that's definitely one of the big questions that we get.
Yeah, the amount of people we have come in that don't have access to that information, thinking that this is it, they're going blind. I remember my family.
And that's not the fault of the hospitals, because the hospitals are treating the condition, whereas we tend to feel like we're treating the patient with that condition and trying to help them out understand what it's all about, why, what, and how. So yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I think that probably is a good point to mention, that when you do come and have an appointment with us, we tend to allow at least an hour and a half to sit down and focus on you as a person and what do you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique selling point, I always call it now. It's time we can give people. Everywhere, every service now is so stretched and it's struggling. So, but we still manage to.
Gift of time.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important, because the bit that we kind of focus on, I think, as the whole team here actually, is the functional vision. What we're trying to really sort of help people with is for them to understand and to practically live functionally with their sight loss. Because you're right, Gary, hospitals, they are treating a condition, it is very clinical, they're making measurements and things, but it's all well and good in that setting and for the purposes of kind of treatment. But then that person's then got to leave hospital and be out in the big wide world. They're not looking at an eye chart. They're not, considering treatment plans. They're trying to walk down the street or get into a car or make a cup of tea. And so there's a really big difference between what is your clinical vision and what is your functional vision. And there's a lot of emotion and psychological stuff that can get wrapped up in the functional side of sight loss. And that's the bit I feel that we give the time to.
Which is enhanced by the fact that if there's no knowledge, that person then gets more worked up about something that's not actually that worrying. And when we then open that out in terms of why that's happened, how it's going to change, what we can do, what vision you've got left, and work with that, then that really helps, doesn't it? Even just from a mental health point of view.
Absolutely, Knowledge is power, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the most common phrase we hear when people leave here is that I feel so much better.
It's true.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
The second condition that is quite rife is cataracts.
Yeah.
And in fact, that is one of the treatable conditions. But quite often, again, with time, if you might have macular degeneration and cataracts, so you've got the two things that are kind of going a little bit wrong with those. And one of the questions I do get asked is, can you have cataracts removed if you've got macular degeneration? I think certainly a couple of years ago I would have kind of go, they're very, very reluctant to do them. But over the last 6 months or so, we've noted that there are new techniques that they remove the cataract without then affecting the macula. So I think the answer is you need to have a chat with the ophthalmologist, and they will decide if they want to do it and if that will be helpful for you. And certainly if you can take that cataract away, that takes away the dusty, milky atmosphere. It still leaves the macular degeneration, but it does help to actually improve the vision. So 6 months, 12 months ago I'd have said definitely not, but now the new techniques are getting better.
That's great, yeah. And one of the most frequently asked questions regarding cataracts as well is, will they grow back?
And in fact, no, they don't. So they take your lens out and put an artificial lens in. They're trying to reduce the prescription that you have, maybe that you had in glasses for distance. They try and reduce that to as near enough to zero as they can. So you might only need reading glasses and for a lot of our patients a magnifier maybe, but that does help, and they don't grow back. Occasionally we have at the back of that lens there's a little sac that then goes a little bit cloudy, and that's a nice easy thing to get rid of. It's called YAG laser, and referral literally takes 90 seconds to do the treatment. So,
Wow.
so again, no, they won't come back. So that's a big plus.
Excellent. So on and done, pretty much. Yeah, great. So going back to a bit about macular degeneration, seeing if it's most common and people access our services most with this, how do we help people to make the most of their remaining vision with this condition?
Whoa! How long you got?
Yeah,
We've got another hour and a half.
yeah.
That's a
That is
whole
our
new
question.
podcast.
Yeah,
It is, isn't it? You're right.
I think we
But
might
certainly,
take that
so
back.
from-
from an AMD point of view, and people accessing it, that the biggest problem that they tend to have is obviously whenever you look at something, it kind of disappears. So a letter arrives, they try and read it, and because you're using your central vision. So one of the tricks that we have is to kind of make that text bigger, which means that it fills more of the retina. So the easiest one, as you probably gather, is magnifier. The problem also, and this is one of the big questions, is why can't I get a big, strong magnifier? And traditionally, lenses, as they get stronger, get thicker, and therefore the lens tends to get smaller. So in fact, you can have a strong magnifier, but it's really quite tiny, which then is counterproductive if you then want to read, because although the words are bigger, you've only now got 2 words on there or 1 word. Whereas if you reduce the power, you get a lot more words on the page, but it's a lot smaller. So that's one of the ideas that we use. We've talked about tech, so in fact we tend to use now digital magnifiers, or even indeed if you have a mobile phone, taking photographs and making that bigger, that does help as well.
It's also the looking sideways past
Yep, we also
things
try
as
and
well.
teach how to look off-centre of what you're looking at. All our life we look at things, whereas we try and teach people to look just slightly off-centre to it. I see Sean's doing it now. It's hard, John.
I'm trying to read
It's
some handwriting as
It
well.
is hard.
It's a bit like tapping your head and
Yeah,
rubbing
it
your
is.
tummy type
You
thing.
spent
is.
80 years doing it one way. And
Yeah,
then,
now we're saying
yeah.
for family members as well, they don't get it, because I'll have a lot of people saying, I don't understand it, because like mum will say she can't see the telly, which is, right there in front of her. Yet she'll suddenly say to me, can you pick up that thing that's on the floor, that piece of cotton that's on the floor, which is in the peripheral vision? And she go, well, how can you not see the telly, but you can see that? I don't get it. So often for us, a lot of it is, as well, if there's a family member with them, is kind of explaining why that is the case, because sometimes people think, you're having me on, you can't see that, but you can see that. That doesn't make sense.
Yes, I've run into that as well with family. Yeah, it encompass sight loss. Doesn't just encompass the individual with sight loss.
Yeah, it's around them.
It affects everyone. It's like a shockwave effect around you.
It does, it ripples, because there's a lot of frustration naturally that comes with sight. There's obviously the loss itself, which brings with it, feelings of grief. And that definitely affects family members, because now it might be that whereas they were just kind of daughter and mum, it's now carer and mum in some situations when it's extreme. And I think that when you start to change that relationship, that brings with it a lot of other emotions and things, depending on how connected those relationships were in the first place. So there's a lot of complex sort of mental and emotional things that go on with sight loss, that often for the people that are referred to me, I have to kind of pick through to really kind of understand not just the sight loss. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on in people's lives as well in general, and sight loss just complicates everything.
Because it's everything,
It's
isn't
everything.
it?
It's a
dominant
dominant sense, isn't it? And it's not functioning. It's not doing what it should do. It's not helping things be easy anymore, and when that gets hard, if life's already hard for other reasons, how do we pick that person back up and help them move forward with it so that they still have a good quality of life with sight loss?
I remember having a chat with you, talking about how the brain and the body are kind of like at different places.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 28 in my head, but my body's definitely not.
There's definitely a delay. There's a delay in the brain catching up and accepting that things aren't as they were. And, you're right, Sean, you kind of touched upon it, 80 years of habit and conditioning and just living life and doing things the way you've always done them. That's the norm. When you your body, your brain is telling your body to continue to pick that up in the same way, or do that thing that you did in the same way you've always done it, but your sight's going, we can't see to do it like that. And so there's the person before sight loss, which is, you know, lots of memories, lots of ability, lots of things there and experience. And then there's, what does that now look like with the sight loss? So you don't lose it all, but you kind of just can only take a certain amount with you into this sort of new space. And that's the part that I hopefully am able to help people with.
It's almost like you become a new person after, or, you know.
And it's not better or worse, you know, and that's one of the messages I try to get through to it. It's different. You know, we're differently abled now. So that's what we try and work with.
I think that's a classic of when we see people where you might say, I'm struggling with the TV, and then we ask how far away it is, and it's kind of 12 foot away. And you kind of go, well, I bet your sofa's on one side of the room and your TV on the other. Yeah, well, that's because we always do that. We go into a new house and we look and go, the telly's got to go there, so therefore the sofa, because if we get any closer we'll get square eyes, which doesn't happen. So it is just some simple things that we do rather than sort of high-techy stuff. Some things it's just like, well, can you half the distance to that TV? Well, yeah, well, there you go, you've already won. Rather than going and buying a new TV. And that's, again, that adaptation, is that doing old things in newer ways.
It's
and that comes back to that condition,
actually,
isn't it?
because often people won't move the telly or won't do a certain
not even
thing
thought
a
about
new
it,
way.
because that's what we do.
Because they just don't think that they can or they should. And it's
They're not allowed to.
It's that allowing, that giving yourself permission to do these things in a new way. And it is empowering.
So doing things in different ways, so things that you wouldn't normally do in your day-to-day life. So, you know, glare seems to be a big issue. We run into a lot as well. So we've had a few questions about sunglasses in the past, which is quite a big jump from where we've come from, but I need to try and get us back on track with these a bit.
What are you saying, we're off track? We're always off track.
How very dare you.
We went down a bit of a rabbit hole. It was fantastic. But
That's how we roll.
I'm just trying to...
Moving swiftly on.
You know how hard my job is to get segued back into sunglasses?
Go with it, Sean. We're with you. We're with you.
Sunglasses.
Sunglasses. Right.
Right then,
Back in
sunglasses,
the
Sean. Sorry, back in the room, Sean. We're with you.
It doesn't seem like much now, does it?
It's like herding cats, this, Sean, isn't it?
No, listen, Sean, glare is a big issue. We get that.
Thank you.
I mean, every day, I would say at least 70-80% of people that I see, glare is a big issue. So we always bring that up in terms of that. So you're quite right, bring us back into the room. So yeah, sunglasses.
And I think phone calls to the charity, it's always the sunglasses. Is, you know, I need some sunglasses. The glare's an issue, isn't it? It's probably one of the most common calls we get, isn't it?
Yeah. So traditionally, I mean, if people don't wear spectacles for sight anyway, they may wear sunglasses, but in England we don't have a massive need for them. So that's it, just to block the sun because it's really sunny, or if you're driving and things. When we then have cataracts or AMD, or particularly with glaucoma, it makes that glare like 3 times worse. So in fact, if you haven't worn glasses, that's one of the things that we need to look at in terms of glasses or sunglasses. Quite often we find that when people have had maybe an eye test at an optician's, they will maybe have had varifocals. So instead of having 2 pairs, one pair of the sunglasses and one pair of the clear pair, they then try and combine them just into one pair, which is what we call a photochromatic, or a lens that reacts to sunlight. The kind of downside of that particular lens is that in England, I mean, at the moment we're in January, and it has been -5 the other day. It's actually now 11, and we're only a few days different. But that lens in a cold environment, when you walk outdoors with it bright and sunny but cold, will go really dark. Now, for someone that then hasn't got good vision, coming back into a darkened room, as in the PSS, that lens takes a good 5-10 minutes to recover. So when you walk indoors, your eyes will take a lot longer to recover, and that's where we have things like falls occur. And of course, that lens is no longer working very well. In summer, when it's really warm, they don't go as dark. So ironically, they're not as good in summer as they should be. So we kind of favour here more of a wraparound sunglass that can actually then go over the top of your glasses. So if you wear ordinary glasses, you can actually have photochromatic if you want, but you can put them over the top of your glasses. The big plus is Anita has a struggle with this, it's got a brow bar on it.
Brow bar.
I struggle with saying it.
Get my tongue around it.
Yeah, it's going around brow bar. So that's where
Thank
it
you,
stops
Gary.
light coming in from above, and that's exactly where the sun's going to
I
be,
love
isn't
the
it?
brow bar, by the way.
You love brow bar.
Because I use them and they're amazing.
There you go, you see.
There you go.
And
So it
stuff
doesn't matter
with
what we call
glare.
them.
Yeah.
So that brow bar actually stops light from coming over the
And
top.
the sides.
The wraparound
Yeah.
actually stops them from coming the
Brilliant
side.
for driving.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So even obviously a lot of our patients are not driving, but they're actually a passenger.
Yeah.
And of course, then as you're driving down the road, and particularly in winter, the sun's really quite low, comes in at the side of their photochromatic lenses, which is not working behind a windscreen,
Yep.
and therefore they struggle with a lot of glare. So that type of lens, and I know Nikki wears them, they are brilliant, so they do help, and we supply them from here. You can ask your optician as well if they do them. So that's definitely one of the ways. The other simpler tricks are a peaked cap.
Peaked
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a baseball cap or a brow cap or what we got, a full
Visor.
visor, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Anything that's going to block out that sun from the
yeah,
top.
because if the
What
sun
about
does come
full-on
out,
frilly parasol?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
whatever floats your boat.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a picture of me wearing one. No,
The 80s was a fun time, wasn't it?
yeah, just simply a peak cap, because if you then come around a corner and the sun's out and suddenly hit the sun, you can dip your head and that will stop the light from coming in. So that's actually another good way. And if you're not wearing glasses normally, then that again is a nice, simple, easy way of doing it. Okay.
Yep. So we get
So
a lot.
sunglasses are a really good question, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got there. We're back on track.
Yeah,
aren't we?
back on track. Well done.
So with sunglasses as well, we get a lot of questions about. I've got glaucoma, so I need amber lenses. I've got macular degeneration. I need a grey lens. Is that any truth to that?
Well, it's very subjective. We find, I mean, yes, even at university when I was there, there was a recommendation of yellow for this and amber for this, because an amber lens or a brown lens will take the blue end of the spectrum out, which means that there's less glare from the sky. A yellow lens actually improves contrast, which again is for AMD. But that doesn't occur. So, for instance, here we've got a video that we're doing with George here, and in fact she has glaucoma, and when we went outdoors, she much preferred a dark grey lens. Now, from my point of view as an optometrist, I kind of thought that probably wouldn't work. She put the amber one on, and she didn't like it. So it's more a case of trying to see. I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but try and see. And that also brings us on to things like buying them from the internet, of whichever place that you get them. Obviously the manufacturers. And I did see one the other day, which was a yellow lens for night driving. And in fact, as there's little arrows pointing to the features of the lens, one of the features of that nighttime glass was that it actually had a UV block on it.
And it's night time.
Yeah. So manufacturers are going to try and find any which way to kind of go, this is a feature, this is what you need, because a UV block, everybody knows you need the UV block, but not for night driving.
No,
In
never
fact,
do
night driving with
sunbathing at
lenses
night,
is not
are
a good idea.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah.
So it's much better to actually go in and try them, put them on, try them in the environment that you need them in, and then you decide, rather than what we think is that will work for you.
And it is a service we can provide. We can release items without payment, with an invoice, for you to try for a few weeks in your day-to-day, because
Yeah, we usually say if people kind of phone up and say, I need some sunglasses, what you recommend, we kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to send you a couple of pairs, try them, different tints, try them in your day-to-day life, and then, send back the ones which help and ones that don't. So
and just coming back to, we do often get people when they come for an assessment with me. I can't say that. I can say brow bar. And they come for an assessment with me. Quite often they bring like 3 carrier bags full of magnifiers that they bought because grandson says this will work, etc. And it's not a good idea just to buy them without trying them. So this is also why we work with what you need. So we assess what your vision is, what you would need, and then offer that to see. So it might be that you need far too strong a magnifier to use traditional methods. So we would recommend a digital one. But again, buying that off the internet will be quite an expensive exercise, and you probably will find it didn't work if you didn't need it.
There's also that assessment, do I need to use it with my reading glasses or without my reading glasses, and how to use it.
Yeah.
So often people will will walk into the charity and they go, I want to buy a magnifier, or I want to buy a magnifier for my mum, and we kind of go, okay, you're going to need to make an appointment and come back for an assessment. And, sometimes why can't I just buy one? And it's like, well, it's not quite as simple as that, because we need to find the right one. You wouldn't walk into an optician's and just go and pick up a pair of glasses off the shelf. And that's
I think here we don't sell anything. We just find the product that works for you. And if you can afford it and you would like it, then that's when we would say that's what you need. But it's not about selling you stuff. We could sell tons of stuff. But you'd still be that person walking with 4 bags of magnifiers that none of them worked, and you spent a lot of money on something that didn't work. So I'd much rather do it that way.
Yeah.
That's great. So I think to find out, one of the most frequently asked questions is, where are you? Where are we in the world?
We're here.
We're here. Right,
In the kitchen.
yeah. We're inside your phone, or rather inside your computer.
We're in your ears.
We're everywhere.
We're in the centre of the universe, which is Doncaster.
Doncaster in England.
Doncaster,
I
South
always
Yorkshire.
told office people, say, I can tell you're not from Doncaster because you say Doncaster, not Doncaster.
That's right, Donny. That's right, Donny. So yeah, we're based in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, but do you have to be based in Doncaster to access the services?
No, we get people wherever you are, even in the world. We've had people come from overseas to see us, that you can come and see us.
Yeah, we're a phone call away as well.
Yeah.
What was the figures that we
email.
had last year for the amount of phone calls?
Oh, it
Something
was
like 7,000 phone
it
calls.
was like a lot, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we're always there. If we can't always help you straight away, but you tell us what your problems are, and we usually find a resolve for it. And again, and even if it's only sunglasses, well, it's a bit bigger than just sunglasses, so we'll send you some.
It might be worthwhile pointing out at this point that if you can't come to see us, but you do need a magnifier and you're not getting any help locally from where you are, we do have a service where we can try and assess it remotely by sending out a reading chart, which you complete and then send back to us, and then we can make a recommendation as to what level of magnification you need. It might also mean a phone call with us, or just to discuss your situation in detail. We can get more information, but that is another way that we try to help. I think we also need to talk about registration, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so one of the really big questions is how do I get registered as visually impaired? Yeah, and obtain a certificate of visual impairment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need to.
Oh, okay, so the only person who can issue you with a certificate of visual impairment is a consultant ophthalmologist at the hospital. So there is a big grey area between when your vision is not good enough to drive, but it's not bad enough to be registered. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people fall into that limbo area.
Limbo, definitely.
Yeah. There are 2 levels of registration. There's sight impaired and severely sight impaired.
So the old words for that would have been partially sighted and blind.
And blind, yeah.
But it's not as PC these days. It's been changed.
It's ever changing, yeah.
So the consultant is the only person who can sign that certificate of visual impairment. And Gary, you might like to explain what levels of vision.
Yeah, it's quite a sliding scale. So, for instance, you could have effectively 20/20 vision, just about where it's nearly enough the bottom line on a chart. But because of glaucoma, you've lost all of your peripheral vision, so you've got like tunnel vision. And so the sort of vision part is the vision, but also the field of vision as well. So both of those have got to be assessed. So when you go to the eye department to be assessed as to whether you can be registered, they will do a field of vision test, but also your sight test that you know about with the test chart as well. And then according to the rules, if you like, they'll decide whether you're sight impaired or severe sight impaired, or indeed don't fall within that remit. So one of the classic questions that we get quite often is, particularly phone calls as well, is I have no vision in one eye, but I have vision in the other eye. And the question is, how good is your vision in the remaining eye? Well, it's fine. I can see bottom line of the chart, in which case you wouldn't be registrable, because actually you haven't lost the field of vision in both eyes. So it is quite complex. Certainly if you're having an eye test at the opticians, they should be able to tell you whether you would be eligible or not.
But they can't do the registration.
They can't do the registration. But yeah, certainly asking them about that would help. They'll tell you.
It's quite a slow process as well. So the quicker you get that ball rolling, the quicker
It has got slower since kind of 2020.
Yeah.
Because it's not from a hospital point of view, they're busy dealing with a lot of emergencies and risky things that are occurring. Whereas registering low vision is
it's not life or death.
It's quite low down. The last 3 that I've referred are talking about 9 months-ish in Doncaster, in our area. There are some areas that were better. In fact, Wales are talking about doing a slightly different system, whereby actually if you've got 2 eyes with AMD and it's not treatable, the optometrist would actually be trained in registering, but that's even there. It's a couple of years before we're going to get to that stage. So in England, it's back to the old traditional method. And again, if say a hospital has then Nikki, how many ophthalmologists do they have? Consultants, half dozen? Yeah, half dozen. So they've only got 6. So if we're referring from a city into just 6 people that are going to do that, then it's not surprising, is it? It's going to take quite a while. Yeah. And also that's the bit where you're left in limbo for quite a while, aren't you? Yeah. But you can still access a lot of the things that.
Well, you don't need to be registered to
access
our services. But if you were looking for sort of financial support specifically related to the loss of your vision, being registered would help with that. Another question we get asked quite often about registration: I'm registered, can I get a free TV licence? And that's no. You can get a 50% reduction on your TV licence if you're registered as severely sight impaired.
And you can get a further reduction if it's black and white, is that right as well?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know that one.
Black and white, but I mean, how many people got a black and white TV?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a minefield, but something as well. Do we help with benefits?
No, we don't. Because it's a minefield. The best people to get benefit support from, Citizens Advice are really good. Our local Citizens Advice are really good.
Yeah.
So,
and they can refer you, they can signpost you then to the correct services.
I was just thinking, Gary made a comment when we were talking about registration about having no peripheral vision, but a tiny bit of, like central vision. And one of the issues with that is because you've got the central vision, you will be able to read, maybe still see quite small detail, but you might need to use a long cane or something like that. So people won't understand that. And we used to have a volunteer here who used to get on the bus with a long cane and then get up her phone and start reading her phone. And then the other people on the bus would kind of start whinging, saying, oh, you're having us on, you're faking it and stuff like that. So it kind of brings me on to the fact that often it's an invisible disability. And a lot of people don't. I don't know whether you want to step in and talk about this a little bit, Nikki.
Do you mean about, when you get to a point when you're happy for other people to be aware that you've got a visual impairment and that kind of process? Yeah, so often it takes a long time for you to accept that you've got sight loss, and sometimes it can bring, perhaps it might sound a bit strange to say this, but some odd emotions like shame and embarrassment. Actually, it's not something you asked for, this has happened to you, but people do feel quite deep levels of shame and embarrassment around that, and then they project that out thinking that the people around them are also going to be embarrassed of them or feel some shame towards them or treat them poorly. And so what ends up happening is you hide that sight loss from the world because you've not accepted it, the world won't accept it. And so I do a lot of work with people around building confidence and sort of helping them to understand that is a perception and it's not a true perception, and actually when you start to feel comfortable to wear, whether it's a lanyard or badges or the long cane, or even we've talked quite a lot about sunglasses, they can be a really strong indicator that somebody's got a visual impairment if you're wearing them in an unusual setting, like you're not on a beach. It's a big leap. And so we do a lot of work here to try and get people to that point where they're comfortable to sort of not shout about it, but just be okay with the rest of the world seeing.
I think the stereotype of someone that's blind is the guide dog, the white cane, the sunglasses, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be. And in fact, the majority of people here do not walk around like that.
No, don't. And what does it look like? What does visual impairment look like?
There's
no
a hidden disability. So.
Absolutely.
But it's just making those bits that you can say, look, this is why I'm bumping into you. That changes the conversation.
Yeah.
So whether it be an armband that's in yellow that says I'm sight impaired, that helps then if you do bump into something, it's not your fault. But it is that there is a bit of a leap between that and acceptance, isn't there?
Getting to the point where where you believe that takes a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Because actually what comes with sight loss is vulnerability.
Yeah.
And lots of people feel that if they wear sunglasses in a strange environment, or if they have a long cane, it makes them vulnerable, and then they're at risk of people being mean or causing harm or bullying or whatever it is because they look different. Actually, we know from experience and from what people who come here tell us that actually the kindness of strangers is ever present, isn't it? You know, people are absolutely wonderful. They want to help. It's really the rarity that people target, you know, those that look different and are having those indicators on show. So trying to get that message across and really work with somebody to get them to that point, that's usually quite a big piece of work, but it's so important.
There's no roadmap for it. There's no time frame to get there any distance.
It's not linear.
It's not linear at all.
It's not linear.
It's, you know, we do loop-de-loops. You know, we go backwards a few steps before we get forward 10. It's individual, very much so.
Definitely, it's a unique journey. So I think we've covered just about everything.
Well, you know what we do. You know where we are.
That's right. You know where to find us. Yeah. You know what we had for lunch last week.
Yeah. And we're not funded.
We're not funded, unfortunately.
So it just leaves me to say that starting at the end of Q1 of this year, that we should have a new look website, which will have a whole host of frequently asked questions and a wealth of information out there for you. So the website address, it's partsight.org.uk. That's not changed from our current website. But if you want to find our frequently asked questions, it's partsight.org.uk/FAQS, which is facts, frequently asked questions. To contact us, our number is 01302 965 195. That's Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. And I think that just leaves me to say thank you again to everybody for joining me.
You're welcome.
You.
Thanks for bringing us back into the room.
Yeah.
We're going to be steering the ship.
Cracking the whip.
Cracking the whip.
Captain Fowler.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody. See you again soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.